Hello and welcome to Material Matters with me, Grant Gibson. As regular listeners will know, the idea behind the show is that I speak to a designer, maker, artist or architect about a material or technique with which they're intrinsically linked and discover how it changed their lives and careers. Today I'm in the North Wales workshop of Junko Mori. The Japanese-born artist is renowned for her extraordinary work in metal that aggregates hundreds of individually forged elements to create pieces that are often inspired by nature in general and cell division in particular. As she has said, the uncontrollable beauty is the core of my concept. Over the years, Mori, who is represented by the gallery Adrian Sassoon, has exhibited in places such as the Saatchi Gallery, the V&A, and at Salon in New York. In March, you'll be able to see her work at TFAF in Maastricht. She's also been involved in shows and residencies with other artists, most notably Kate Malone at the Harley Gallery in Nottinghamshire. Junko, thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you for coming.
Can we kick off by talking about your studio? We're here in North Wales, which is an hour's drive from Bangor. How did we end up here?
Yes, we basically, my husband and I met in Manchester, and that was actually Crafts Council setting up, like a type of setting up grants called Next Move. And then, so my first studio in Manchester, and then, when my career kind of settled a little bit, and then my work started selling, I realized I need a little bit more space, time in my head. And so also we used to come to this region for surfing and bodyboarding. That was the main reason, to be honest.
Yeah. So you came for the surf?
Yeah.
Ah.
Sea, beach, and mountains as well. So, and also if renting and buying a house in city, London is just impossible. Manchester is also that time expensive. So I realized if I move down this area, I get financially probably quarter of money I need. That means I need to earn quarter amount of money. That means I can do 2/3 of time to create that much finance. I can do whatever I want. So then we start looking for the property around this region. It's unbelievable.
It is. I mean, it's extremely beautiful, and you have really quite a spread here nowadays. How long have you been here? A decade or so?
Yeah, 10 years now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, can we describe for the listeners what your workshop looks like, and what your living conditions? What are they like?
Yeah, it's kind of silly starting point because this house was very, very cheap. And then that was totally under our budget, and we didn't know why, but basically repossessed. And I don't know if I can talk about this, but people used to grow some dodgy plants. Yes.
Crikey.
And they got arrested, and then they got this place being repossessed. So this house is actually originally a very old farmhouse, but tying to cow shed, pig shed, all sort of different era. People use it differently, and then we got lots of bizarre outbuilding. But for us maker, it's perfect. So we converted one of pig shed as a metalworking studio.
So the pig shed is yours.
Yes. And then the another shed was, I think it's a horse one. It's a John's wood workshop.
Right.
And the main house is apparently a good 200 years old. And we extended, my husband, woodworker, extended, all the natural material, locally sourced wood. And then it's double the size now. And then there's lots of odd small outbuilding, even more. And then we got polytunnel, veg patch, and a little bit garden. With a newly built cabin where we were in. You can see Irish Sea. So it's really amazing kind of sort of space. It's not a lot. It's under acre, but you can do loads with that land actually.
And can we talk about your relationship with metal? This is what the podcast is about. When did you start working with metal? What is it about metal that particularly appeals?
Yeah, so metalworking came into my life when I was 19 in Musashino University in Tokyo. That was my first BA I was doing. And then so this university was 3D design, kind of crafts, industrial interior design course, all in one. So there was 120 students, quite a big university. Then all the students divided into 5 groups, and then all kind of rotate into different workshop. So that means that I started wood, I think. So wood, textile, ceramic, metal, and one more, plastic that time. Actually, that's gone in the course now. But so you rotate the group, and then so you have a sort of a chance to touch and experience all material, and then you decide at the end of the second year which course do you want to do. Then it's bizarre thing was metal was the hardest things for me.
Well, no, I've seen a quote saying you hated it, to be honest.
So basically, it's called the technique called hammer raising, which is a sheet metal, and then all students been given about 20 centimeter diameter copper sheet, and then gradually raise into the ball shape, and then somehow certain angle or sort of hammering I was doing made it it's supposed to be stretch. Most of the students ended up stretching way too thin and it's expand the ball, but I was opposite. It's getting shrinking and getting smaller. And apparently 1 in 100 students does it. It's kind of a weird angle. I don't know why. And I was so annoyed. And because all the other material was like, sounds very cocky, isn't it? I got huge respect to ceramicists and glass artists and woodworker, but metal was very difficult for me.
So it's the challenge that you enjoyed.
Yeah, it's like I always say this, but like a bit like a boyfriend and girlfriend, like harder to get. It's like you want to chase more. So yeah, I got this tendency actually. Yeah.
And this technique you have of building aggregates or agglomerations of tiny elements to create a larger whole, when did that develop?
So that was a really interesting thing about when I was 20, the second year. So I was pretty much decided I'm definitely doing more making, not industrial design or interior design. I want to be hands-on. And then, but that was interior projects. And then I've been asked to make some sort of a space to be in. And then that time I was kind of collecting my favorite image, basically. There wasn't internet then. So I used to cut the magazine article, like image and pictures, and then edit it into the book and sketchbooks and stuff. And then I realized there's a coherent theme was exactly like a visual of a group of things, like lots of fish in a pond or bird in the sky or cell divisions or lots of shell, coral, sort of a little bit community in the sea, stuff like that. So then I realized why I drawn to these things, and then realized my childhood, I used to love microscopic sort of a how do you call it, biology lesson. I was about 10 or 11, and then my teacher, passionate, very nerdy teacher, he said he noticed I really, really into it. So he said oh, look, if you scrape inside of your mouth, or if you take your hair or dirty pond water, there's just so many world out there. Even probably could be bigger than the universe. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So if you go nano, you get more smaller elements, as well as you going outward to the universe. So I was like, wow, that's interesting. And then the microscope I nicked from my brother, and happened to
Did he
It.
notice?
No, he's not that kind of guy. So he was very happy about it. Then I started collecting pond water, and one day I saw some, I don't know, it's egg or something, was hatching or dividing, some sort of little creature was dividing. And then in my head, there was a Ebola virus pandemic that time in Africa. And then I was like, oh, you see these imagery in the telly, say, showing these infinite, viruses propagating quickly. then it's spooky, but at the same time, so I got that kind of visual, vital power of propagation.
It's almost like an eruption, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, it's spooky
Yeah.
as well as but it's happening to human body all the time, and then it's a sheer energy, I think, itself to multiply ourselves or organisms. So that's coming from that. Then, so basically, this interior project is all about it's a microscopic word, and then I created lots of dot. Then I realized that time, that was my core interest.
Because you've described it as the, which I rather like, the infinite possibility of the growing form.
I'm still much really questioning about myself, like what's the notion of organic nature. Like if you study nature, you find lots geometric, mathematic pattern than what human makes. And I realize my hands create is often more organic than nature, which is bizarre. So I love that often, I hate that word, but juxtaposition of or opposite notion almost coexisting in my practice is always, interested in me. Yeah.
Can we talk about your background,
Yeah.
Junko? Because you grew up in Yokohama.
Yeah.
Your mother was a school nurse.
Yeah, that's right.
And your father worked in the design team of JVC.
Yeah, engineering, like
Right.
a mechanical engineer. So these, recording gears, he's pretty much aware of, the speakers, and he used to develop, home recording. Do you remember VHS?
Yeah, video players.
Yes, video
yeah.
recorders
Yes.
and stuff. That was pretty much he was involved.
So he'd engineer them. He'd work on the guts of them. Is that what he
Yeah,
did?
he used to do that.
And so were you making as a child? Were you fixing things?
All the time. So when I was little, my parents knew I'm going to be a maker already, age probably 7 or
Right.
6. I know. Even she said I was 2 or 3. They knew I'm going to be hands-on. And there was a lot of photographic evidence, like a very scruffy, tiny girl. It's a bucket and scoop, digging ground and creating muddy kitchens. That was I used to do. And at age 8, I asked my, Santa Claus, exists in Japan as well. Asked electric jigsaw. That was I asked them. So apparently my parents said I never sort of had a tantrum in the toy shop. My brother used to have a Nintendos and game and stuff, but I always asked tools, paper, pen, and stuff like that. And then, so my dad used to be DIY all the time.
Right.
So he used to make garden furnitures and, painting things. And so I used to be following him and making
So you would follow him, and presumably he might have thought, particularly at that time, that it would be your brother who would be...
Yes, exactly. My brother is very academic and it's quite opposite. I was into cooking and making, sewing, digging ground. And also I used to live with my grandmother. And then, this is interesting because my grandmother, in the post-war, it's a post-war means before?
After,
sorry.
pre-war.
Pre-war. So she experienced Second World War, and then that generation used to grow, maybe Britain's the same, used to grow vegetables by themselves, used to sew their kimono by themselves. Pretty much making was domestically there. And then my mom's generation is post-war, so everything became consumer, society. So living with these, with them, like a 3-generation house, was very influenced me. I think I was really lucky because my grandma was had a allotment. And they used to grow vegetables, and I loved it. And my mom not hated it. Like, you can buy them. Why you grow kind of generation? It's a different generation. And then, my mom would hate this. Sorry, mom. But anyway, but it's not criticism. It's just purely generation things. And things. It was the 80s, that time is money. If you buy it, it's quicker.
I think probably the UK was quite similar to Japan, or Europe was quite similar to Japan in that sense, because when I was a child growing up, this notion of food being organic, it was almost like you wanted food to be scientific.
Yes.
I was fascinated. Things, they were better if they came out of packets, because it was somehow more progressive than if they came out of the ground.
Yeah, say like a straight and perfect shaped cucumbers and stuff. My father's parents lived in Nagasaki, and then suddenly famous city, and then they are nuclear survivor,
right?
And then she used to be very.
Did they tell you about that? I mean, that's really fascinating. Did they used to tell you about surviving?
No, that's interesting things. And sorry, I might cry. It's a horrible story, but I'd like people know this because my grandmother had a baby. That was my uncle, and she was pregnant of my father. And then nuclear bomb happened, and then she kind of in the radio was reporting a few days before Hiroshima happened. So that is that kind of lethal sort of bomb. So she kind of dashed into the shelter, but she kind of felt something hit on her back, and then she was waiting. So she escaped, and then there was a huge impact, like a storm noise came apparently a few minutes. And then when she came out, her area was a little bit outside of Nagasaki city center, so she was all right or something. But and then unfortunately my uncle was dead. The baby was dead. So this story I didn't know until she passed away.
Right.
She was very optimistic, always smiling, and then no tea, sweets eater. She didn't have much teas. And that was all my memory I had. But my grandparents never talked about war. Almost did nothing happen before. But this story was I'd been told from my my uncle, who is like 15 or 12 years older than my father. So he pretty much remember everything. And so at the funeral, he told me, and her funeral told me, and it's terrible. And that they couldn't have a proper funeral because it was just chaos, that region. So the sad story on top of that, it's like my father's baby photograph not much exists because probably she didn't feel like it. And then not celebrating. So so if without this uncle, probably my dad didn't exist, I didn't exist, and it's horrible. But anyway, sorry, what was this?
No, that's okay. We're digressing because we're just talking about your life. But so you're interested in food, but also making things, materials. You knew what you wanted to do from quite a young age, it sounds like.
Yes, totally. And I was always hands-on, and these two grandmother was always showing how fun that is in making pickles and sewing things. And
so was it because you went to Tokyo to do your BAs we were discussing?
Yeah.
I mean, when you went there, were you thinking that you wanted to be an industrial designer, or when did the notion of becoming an artist emerge?
Yeah, that's interesting. Like my brother was very academic, always, how do you call it, A star? I don't know, tick everything. So I always probably unconsciously searching what I can do, and then what is the difference, and what is I should have some other elements rather than academic thing. And then, so I started to look into it, and then pretty much by age 12, I knew I wanted to be an artist. But I've been surrounded by this elite, nerdy, academic, high-achieving friends, and I was definitely an odd one. Now I would start doing the extra, drawing lesson to pass the exam. And then that time I didn't know, crafts or designer or sculpture. But to be really honest, I probably drawing to more fine art. I used to love sculpture, especially Buddhist temple, Buddha statues and hand-curved, ornated statue and stuff. I used to love.
So you were going to do an MA, I think, in Tokyo, but you couldn't find a place. You ended up working at a fabricator's instead. How did that come about?
That's the kind of...
So you're fixing boilers and things like that,
Yeah.
right?
It's just a horrible experience. So 1997, I graduated that course, and then that was the Japanese bubble economy. The financial crisis was 91, something like that. So a few years later, so that was apparently worst recorded employment from our course or something. It's disgusting, actually. No job. So, but then, so hunting job wasn't in my head at all from the beginning. Like all sort of senior students was mourning about it. So let's find or create the job by myself. And then, but so that time, but hang on a minute, I need more studying. I need to know a little bit more things. And then the crafts course teacher was saying what I made in 4-degree show was very sculptural. And then sculpture course professor passing by, and he's like, this is brilliant, but what are you doing in the crafts? And so lots of people told me I'm somewhere between.
So you fell between two stools, between perceptions of craft and perceptions of fine art in that case.
And there's so many people said then now I thought, maybe I should go enter sculpture MA and study that area. Is more suitable because my work wasn't functional. I wasn't believing functional objects equal craft neither, but it's probably easier for me to make what I want in a sculpture course, but it wasn't sculpture. I mean, fine art department in Tokyo Gaidai interview was even more sort of try to pigeon for me. It was a horrible interview. You're doing the crafts. It's just, I don't know why you do this like a perfect forging. Why you make these beautiful steel things what? So it was a...
So they were more interested in concept. Was that what they were after? Or?
It's like a sculpture is a mass of a form, blah, blah. I don't know. It was it's still puzzling because all the professor interviewing me was... they were sort of almost arguing each other as well. So it's really interesting. My work was kind of triggering the argument. So I felt, to be honest, a little bit good. But at the same time, I knew I'm not going to get in. And then I didn't, which I did. And then I was like, so no one want me, or crafts didn't accept me, fine art didn't accept me. So what can I do? Okay, let's be welder. So sounds ridiculous, but I needed money as well. So, and also I used to work a little bit what's it called? Little part-time job, when it's school holiday, university holiday time. Went to this family-run fabricator place, and then I really enjoyed it. So, and they pay really well, and also they feed me as well. So the boss was 70 something years old, and son was mid 40, and his wife was doing admin, and the two more work. So only 4 men and me. And then I spent nearly a year. It was fantastic. It's just beautiful people. It's a sheer amount of troubleshooting, welding almost every day. The hardest job was dismantling boiler tank on the 26th floor boiler room on 38-degree outside temperature. That room was a 40-something degree. Mm. You have to cover on entire body, and then gas cutting this massive tank. Oh God, it was horrible. And I lost 1.5 stone within 4 days. But anyway, so...
I love this notion of you now, with all your work in all these top galleries, this notion of you dismantling a boiler on the 38th floor at 40-degree temperature. Yeah. I think it's wonderful.
But to be honest with you, all these well-known artists if you meet these artists at the preview or art fair, we dress up and then socializing, but daily life is wearing, boiler suits or dangali, covered with, dirt and dust. That's my 95% of my life is that.
What is it you enjoy about welding? I've read somewhere that you find it meditative.
Yeah. To be really honest, my favorite process is actually forging.
Right.
It's gorgeous. It's like once you gain that sort of skill, certain amount of skill, you almost feel like a hammerhead tip of hammerhead is like an extension of your finger. You can manipulate the hot rod, like almost you pushing clay with your finger. It's almost same feeling. It's you can manipulate very, very precisely, perfectly. And then once you get the level of forging, you feel good. You can do all sort of shape. So forging I can do now is, obviously you need to eat and stuff, but I can, put loud metal music on in my headphone, and then 2 hours like it goes gone. Find it very meditative. So then welding also, my welding is also repetitive. It's the same process, and when I welding, I try not to overthink about it. I don't have, design in front of me to create anything. I just let them grow. So then it's just a little bit offshoot in this conversation, but when I was at Canberra College of Art after welding job, it was brilliant metalworking course. So, I saved the money in Tokyo as a welder. Then I applied to Canberra College of Arts because that time in the 90s, that course creating an amazing bunch of metalworker.
Because I'm intrigued, you took this, I would think, enormous leap from Japan, from Tokyo, where you were fixing boilers in 40-degree temperatures, to come to London to Camberwell College to do another BA or an MA?
Another BA.
Another BA. Yeah. Was it the course that attracted you? I mean, you didn't speak any English at the time, so was it the course that attracted you?
Yes. And basically how that happened was, obviously I wanted to study more about artist side of it. It's not just, welding and fabricating skill. But that year I gained lots of skill, fabricating skill. But that time, my professor I graduated from, the course professor, he kindly introduced to Hiroshi Suzuki, who is a silversmith, amazing, well-known, who is running the course now, actually.
Yes.
He's amazing. And then
he'd studied at Camberwell.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. So that's that connection. So saving a little bit of money, and I was in search of learning probably, Japan is probably, no one accept me, let's go outside. So I kind of few choice, like I love American blacksmith called Paley. Blacksmith, amazing guy, and also German blacksmithing scenes, incredible. So there was a few other countries choice, but when I'm talking about this to professor, and he said, "Oh, do you know Hiroshi? He used to study here, and he's in Canberra at the moment. Maybe you can have a chat in London, and then maybe pinch some idea of him, not necessarily going to the same college." Then I contacted with him at that time, writing proper letter, airmail. And then he said like, "Oh, welcome, come here." And then he explained, come to when new designers is on, because you can cherry pick.
The show that's in Islington that
yes,
showcases
still
new
on.
graduates. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's almost showroom of different courses in UK. So I thought, wow, that's a good idea. Then I went, and then that time my favorite was actually Camberwell, and then in terms of metalwork, and then Edinburgh College of Art, still going strong. It's brilliant. So I was like, two choice. And then Hiroshi said, he probably strongly influenced me to come to London. Then he said, you can, there's so many library, free museum, you can access all sorts of things. London is brilliant. And then, so that's why I decided.
What did you find the differences were between living in the UK and living in Japan?
Huge. I mean, you mean in general or education?
Well, let's go in general first, and then maybe we'll hone in on education afterwards.
But we're talking about 20 odd years ago. 90s is, as you know, UK, London changed so much, don't you think?
Yeah, hugely in the 90s. Yeah.
the supermarket selling green tomato. That was shocking to me. And they're not even ripe. But anyway, and then, so food, horrible that time. And then I hugely regretted that time. And then sourcing Japanese food was so expensive. So I missed that. It's very difficult to say. It was the beginning when I come here. I was very much suspicious, like about this strange United Kingdom. Always like almost opposite notion, like opposite people, different type of idea, different of type of opinion, arguing it all the time, and still now. Look at the Brexit. But anyway, it's a difficult one. It's like a lot of people ask me about why you ended up in Britain, and there's like totally I have love and hate, but living here made me realize this British people themselves has a love and hate to their own nation. That's absolutely fascinating to me. Like not like a blinded nationalistic love. They actually always try to figure out why we are here, but weather, not really great food. But it's brilliant food. But that time I was quite, more you get to know British people, you realize interesting sort of side of juggling with, how can I say, like a imperfection almost, like nothing really makes sense. Lots of people, everyone tried to make sense, but almost everyone knows it's impossible. And then this pub talk and stuff is really irritating, but at the same time, everyone's willing to talk. It's always on the surface. It's not nothing being actually hidden. That's why I think Brexit is happening, because everyone has loads of opinion about everything.
Well, it's quite intriguing. I always feel, and possibly I'm very wrong with this, but there are parallels between the British and the Japanese in that both cultures have a strong sense of heritage and tradition. Both also have this fascination with pop culture.
Yeah.
And both, and you are an exception with this, but neither of them are very good at languages, other people's languages.
Yes, I know.
And I think it's something to do with being an island.
Yes.
An island culture. It's amazing what a bit of water
Yeah.
can do in my view.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, let's talk a bit about the education system that you found and the differences between the way you were taught in Japan and then the way you were taught at Camberwell, because you had, I mean, some quite revolutionary artists and makers taught you. Had Hans Stouffer was running it, I think.
Yes.
And
not running
it,
yeah.
but was there.
Yeah.
David Clark and Simone ten Hompel, who's been on this podcast.
Oh yeah, I saw
and who's extraordinary.
Yeah.
I mean, they're thinkers. All three of them. I
all
would
of it.
posit.
Yeah. Oh gosh, for all. Sorry, everybody. But the Camberwell that time, this like a metalworking 90s, metalworking frontline heroes were teaching me. It was a brilliant course. And Steve Foran as well. Bright was running the course, and it was almost luxurious to me. And then the shocking things about huge difference between Japanese and British education. In my course in Musashi University was in the assessment, you put finished objects. No sketchbook, no backing work things, just finish on the table, just all the students' work. That's it. And then they judge, obviously why you made it, and then like what sort of technique you used and stuff. That's how you assess. Mainly so technical developments, the more emphasis weight is on that side. But Camberwell, it was totally opposite. And I would start banging metal in the studio, and then even I've been stopped. Like Hans starts like, Junko, why are you in the studio? Like we know you can make because you're a welder, you done another BA, but so why? You just stop and research and think, and then. so I had to battle against, the Hans wasn't imposing conceptual design at all then. He just simply questioned me. And then I was like, okay. And then, okay, I stop and then think. And then I started going to museum and the library. And then, but I paid a huge, tuition fee. So I wanted to use the best of it. So 9 to 5, stuck in the studio. And then after 5, London Institute, that time you can access to other, St. Martin, Chelsea, London College of Printing and Fashion. You could go there, library. So they have different type of stock of books, and also King's College as well nearby. So until they open often till 8 o'clock. So I used to go there almost every day. So it was amazing. And then finally I got a couple of assessment tutorial, and then I start. So okay, I like small assembly of small components. So where that coming from? Then that time I realized that childhood memories and blended into my welding sort of experience. And then why metalwork? Because if you compare to other material, it's quite spontaneous. Like if you try to glue clay, soft clay, you have to wait to get dry and stuff like that. And then, but metal is amazing. Even drawing tiny 1 millimeter wire, but you still can hold vertically. It's a strong material as well as actually quite malleable if you think about it. Doesn't snap compared to other material. It's hugely interesting. What can I say? Property of material is very strong. Malleability of metal is probably was kind of important for me. So through the material, why I chose the material, why I ended up that concept, and then try to explain verbally about my concept was pretty much through conversation with Hans, actually. Hans constantly asking, why?
which must be interesting because your English was non-existent when you arrived here, right?
Yeah, but I went to very intensive language course for 6 months. I joined in this language course from the bottom class. Then because I got like a conditional offer from Canva. Basically, if you improve, like whether pass English exam at certain level or certification from language school to graduate from the top class, then I could start the course. So I was desperate. I had to improve my English within 6 months. So I was serious. I was, studying hard for that.
I mean, you don't seem to mind putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. In fact, you seem to almost deliberately put yourself in uncomfortable situations.
I am a bit like that.
Yeah. I mean, does that relate to your working process as well?
Yeah.
How?
So that's the interesting thing. I got 2 kids, and I realized it sounds like a Spartan. But once you give fork and chopstick to young chopstick, fork is easier. So they keep on using fork. But if they don't have choice, like a Japanese kids, they can use chopsticks age at 5 in general. And then, then I got hint, interesting. So for example, 6 years old, first elementary school lesson, Japanese calligraphy. And then there's no mess around. You have to sit certain way. The paper and how to hold in brushes, how much ink you dip it in, everything is formalized, standard. The teacher show this is what you have to achieve, and it's a sample of calligraphy is on the blackboard, so you have to practice like
and you're 6 years old when you're doing this.
6 or 7.
Yeah.
So then people argue about that easily. Kind of Western people might think that's killing the creativity. So how do you define creativity? So is it creativity is about like a British arty thing? It's like a splash the paint and then upside down and then get hands dirty, get muddy. Yes, that's creative as well. But this mastering thought and movement, once you've done it, like a Picasso used to be like that, wasn't it? And then he went nuts after. And so Japanese people are like that. They do formal education first. It seems to be emphasized on that. So like a final, how visually aesthetical things to achieve is very good at that. They do. But inventing things is still not as great as I would say British student invent all sorts of things, aren't they?
Do you see yourself therefore as something of a hybrid between the two cultures?
Yes, yeah. I've been called, this British Museum curator called me cultural hybrid, and I totally do agree because I spent nearly half of my life in UK now, and I can see both influence me so much. My roots is definitely Japan, but yeah, I absolutely adore, UK and Japan on totally equal level now.
One critic described you as being, and I quote, fundamentally a blacksmith. Is that how you identify yourself?
Ooh. Yes, yeah, I think so. Yeah, because but that's the problem, isn't it? Yeah, I'm doing this. Blacksmithing is again, it's a word, isn't it? At the end of the day, and then the notion of craft, blacksmith, silversmith, it's a kind of nature of language, the nature of word. It's like the negative side of it is actually pigeonholing people. So it depends on people, isn't it? How to define blacksmith. It depends on the certain people. So in me, the origin of my metalworking process is a forging steel. So that's why I think blacksmithing is like almost soul backbone of what I do. But conceptually and all other input is actually biology, lots of them, and scientific article I read a lot. And my mom comes in from this point. My mom is a school nurse. So my Campbell dissertation was about how brain works when you're doing repetitive job. And then I discover so much facts, like lack of our modern society is overuse of a big brain, which is new information received and stored and juggle, handling that, daily basis. And then imagine, don't you feel sometimes that looking at smartphone and reading news and article, and you're overwhelmed with information, including visual, and then that means your frontal brain is working super hard, and then apparently, unless you're not sleeping, to empty that area, not activate that area, it's apparently repetition. So if you start jogging, for example, sports, jogging, the first 10 minutes is hard, and you hit the certain point, and your body get used to it, and your brain kind of almost release this chemical to make you feel, oh, that's all right. Then about another 30 minutes, you feel actually constant rhythm, repeating the same action of your body. You don't feel that as hard as first 10 minutes. It's called flow state. And this, I look into that, like it's the same feeling I do get when I'm doing the forging. Sometimes in a very tired day, first 10 minutes, like, oh, why I'm blacksmithing, why I'm doing this? Yeah. And then after that 10 minutes, I just go like, oh, then 45 minutes I forget. And then, wow, 11 o'clock. So already 2 hours gone. And I always find it fascinating. The more repetition I do, my head is clear. Any practitioner, even musician, sports people, probably could understand physical experience about repetition, I think, it's pretty much missing in our society. People link repetition almost links to boredom and repetition boring kind of thing. But there is something beyond repetition. Once your fingers start moving without thinking, because of the repetitive practice, your brain is the most emptied you ever experience. Often people give up before you get in that point. Same as jogging. Like you got to overcome that wall, then you will feel good. I think it's really difficult to explain. People don't make things, but people do other creative things as they would probably understand what I'm saying. But
it's quite interesting because you talk about, I've read you talking about the key to your work is knowing when to stop.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing. So I can go carry on, adding the components and making loads of big sculpture. But sometimes I'm just quite totally not conscious. Apparently, it's called flow state. So I'm not thinking much because my body became like automatic. And then when you realize a certain amount of components welded together, and then if I look at, wow, that's beautiful things happening underneath, then so let's stop there. So that's often, that decision is coming from the work itself, not me, not my head at all. So does that make sense? So the assembly of form telling me, please stop, almost like that. So yeah, it's often, quite recently I made 2 large steel pieces. I was kind of shouting in the studio, yes! One of them are incredibly beautiful. That's going to show next month. So that's things still. I'm still so excited about what I make, which is very lucky because every single object is different.
I mean, you are a beautiful drawer. I've seen your sketches; they're amazing. But you don't draw to make.
No.
So, what role does drawing play in your practice?
Yeah, I called it jogging before marathon. So metalwork is probably long marathon, welding marathon, and then so drawing is about practicing how small because it's quite spontaneous. You need to just pen, paper, and I just start sketching, not like propagating shapes and stuff. And then sometimes I do, botanical sort of drawings with pencil, but that's like a more, I would say, it's like a hobby. It's not. I'm doing that for joy, like just all like a reference. Collecting references,
right?
Which are references. So it's not like a directly try to search the outcome at all. It's more to do with like a more process rather than that searching the outcome.
I mean, you alluded to, or you mentioned the fact that you're going to be showing at TFAF in Maastricht with Adrian Sassoon. I'm wondering what role he and the gallery have played in your career.
A huge, so I'm one of the lucky one. I met Adrian at the Chelsea Crafts Fair, and very interesting because that time it was first time ever exhibitor, and then Crafts Council gave me funding called Next Move, and then I went to Liverpool Hope University as an artist resident, and then 6 months later, I already was standing this crafts fair, and then Adrian was standing in front of me before opening for some reason. So I never met him, and I didn't know his name and who he was. And then he said, that one, I really want to have it. And then can you put the red dot? And then I will come back on Wednesday. So then I said, okay, it was not even 9 o'clock opening hour. Then I saw that he's probably kidding me and he's kind of teasing me. So that's what I thought. And then he then I didn't realize. And then on Wednesday he came back, and then, oh, where that wall hanging I pointed, and I sold it. I didn't know your lady actually coming back. And then opposite to my stand, there's a really lovely lady. She was saying, Adrian, he's giving the award. And oh, so that's how I met him. And so I was completely naive. I didn't know who he was. And then after that, and then a few months later, he said do you want to exhibit with him? And then he was just about dealing with contemporary crafts. And then he, he's a porcelain expert, antique background, and curator from museums background. So I was like, oh, okay. And then, but he starts selling a lot, and then starts like a sort of dominating my income was from Adrian's Soon Gallery. So so I think but took for a while. I signed up with him to do solo trader, but we always kind of sort of discuss what I want to do, and he always give me total utter freedom what I want to make. He doesn't interfere that at all. So obviously without him I'm not here. And also he influenced me in a many other way, because I never sort of look at museum collection as I do now before, because before I was like, rare helmet from Roman soldier, great kind of thing. And then I just never fully appreciated museum. Then I kind of bumped into him a few times in the museum, and then he started passionately explain stuff at exhibition, and then it's just quite mind-blowing. So and also last November I was attending Salon New York, and this is an international interior design fair. Took a lot dictating with interior products. And then Adrian's sort of curator friends invited me to exhibition opening called Making Marvels. Not marbles, marvels. And like some extraordinary objects from medieval time and stuff. And at Met Museum. So it was quite a big thing. And then huge exhibition about extremely intricately made objects. Lots of them were even tools, guns, and toys, and just ornamental things or jewelry, but extraordinary skill, just mind-blowing level. And then I've been surrounded by this huge, hugely important curators, and then, so Junko, come here, have a look, what do you think as a metalworker? And then, and then they start advising me, Junko, just all you got to do is just make what truly you want to make. Don't even think about context, whatever. You just make your own context. You just make, use your space and time and enjoy. Then I don't know why it's kind of made me so emotional, because last year I was kind of in the search of, I'm mid-career maker, what's the next step? My work's in the museums now, and what is the next step to take? And then these bunch of curator, they're at 70s and stuff, and they surrounded, me and telling me that like a sheer expectation. Their face was like, what are you going to make next? Like this. And not pressure at all. It's more to the encouragement and the passion they have about stuff, art, and, human hands could create in the past and now. I realized I could be the history of it. I got potential to do it. So my heart was pumping. Weird, isn't it? At the art preview, I literally felt that I go home, back hotel, I felt so emotional. So from that last November, it's only 3-4 months ago. Yeah, I kind of kicked off with lots of different idea and something I put away in the past because it was simply too complicated to make. Everything's on the table at the moment. So I had a meeting with Adrian. I'm kind of actually trying to do it. Is that okay? So it's going to be quantity of work will be reduced, but I can guarantee quality and something new I can put on the table in 6 months. And Adrian was like, just do it. Fine. So I'm very excited about that.
Well, I'm intrigued. So we've got a couple of months to wait until something new.
No, but it's already started, actually. So November, I made the large 2 steel pieces. It's just a little bit beyond one of them, definitely. That's going to be shown at TEFF. So I'm very, very confident about that. But that was very tricky, super heavy, one of the heaviest and spikiest, so dangerous. But very, very happy the outcome. So please check the website. It will be on soon, I think.
Well, we will wait for March in Maastricht. Junko, I have a train to catch.
Yes. Is it already that
It's
time?
already that time. It's unbelievable.
God,
thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Grant. Yeah, my pleasure.
And to learn more about Junko's work, go to junkomori.com. If you're interested in purchasing, go to Adrian Sassoon's website, which is adriansassoon.com. There are images from the interviews, as well as little films and other things on my Instagram page, Grant on Design. If you've enjoyed listening and want to see this podcast flourish, then please rate and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to us from, and go to my Patreon page and make a pledge. You can find that at patreon.com/material matters. You'll be helping to take the message of the importance of materials, skill, craft, and design to a whole new audience. Thanks very much for listening.